Hey everybody, it's Chan Chai. Today is December 7th, Thursday. It's the day of the Video Game Awards, and let's talk about it. Um, this is the first episode of what I'm probably going to call VIRTUA Talk. Maybe VF Talk, but I think I'm going to call it VIRTUA Talk. Anyways, today I'm going to cover some quick topics, uh, just in advance of the Video Game Awards. So the topics I'll cover today will be the Video Game Awards. I will talk about VirTua 3 Team Battle Online, the whole, the arcade edition that's in Japan. And then I'm also going to talk about how I am absolutely still loving Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. I've had the most amazing year of Virtua Fighter, and I'm still having an amazing month of Virtua Fighter in December of 2023. So we'll talk about that. So let's get to the Video Game Awards. So for those that don't know, the Video Game Awards, there's a lot of anticipation, and at the very least, we're going to get some awesome Sega news. Some content creators, we don't know all who got it, but some content creators got a cryptic, stylistic mail, like a flyer from Sega that basically said, "New era, new energy." It does use the font that was used in Virtua Fighter esports promotion and Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown promotion. However, I wouldn't read too much into that because companies buy fonts, they're going to use fonts for their promotions. So it's just something in their library and it's paid for. But there is a lot more rumbling than usual that maybe there is Virtua Fighter news. And in the past, and so we're feeling it, and so there's a lot of what we call hopium. We're hoping we're not gonna have to deal with the copium if it's not Virtua Fighter, and we are used to a lot of times hoping for some VF news, but it doesn't happen. But this one, this is one of those cases where I feel like there's room for hope on this one. And I think it's more likely than some of the other times when the community was hoping for VF news and maybe didn't get it. I think this time there's actually a chance. So some of us in the VF community are going to be doing live stream watch parties of the Video Game Awards. Virtual Kazama, I believe, has an official okay to do that with the Video Game Awards. So it's going to be great. I wouldn't be surprised if Shadosha does as well. But yeah, we have so it's exciting. What do I actually think is going to come at the Video Game Awards tonight? Well, it's whatever it is, it's going to be good Sega news. I think it's likely to be a lineup. Sega has been teasing a super game that they're going to be releasing eventually, but it's going to be further down the line, like 2026, probably, maybe 2025. And a lot of rumors have been that the super game is something like some kind of future, a new vision for like Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi, and I can see that, but I don't know. That's kind of a tough one for me to see as that being the super game. But I do think does it have potential to be really fun, engaging, popular, even, um, and even a good revenue stream, because anything that you're going to really pitch hard to your investors should have a good revenue stream. Maybe, but I do see Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi as arcade classics, but ultimately cult classics in the modern video game landscape. But I think they're amazing games. I love those games. A lot of people still have an attachment to them. So there definitely is room, and there's definitely a lot of potential for, especially in the modern age of gig drivers like Uber, right? And Jet Set Radio, we got Bomb Rush Cyberpunk still, came out to critical acclaim. Community seems to love that game. So maybe. Um, some people think maybe Fantasy Star Online related thing. I'm not sure about that, but that would be okay, I guess. I don't know if that would be worth like getting all the content creators out for that, because I don't know what they would say about it, aside from that looks cool, right? But it should also be a very compelling new vision for Phantasy Star. Phantasy Star Online has been pretty awesome, um, but and actually doing pretty well. But it is also just not on such a huge radar. But Video Game Awards is definitely a place to promote a game with dedicated video game audiences. Um, in the past, I had said, like at both Evo 2022 in discussion online, and when I was at Evo Japan, um, people had asked me if I was expecting um, like news of a VF6 at those events, and I said no. I said usually those events they don't draw the big audience that like an E3 did, or they don't get news media attention. They get some on a vague sense for fighting games as a whole, and maybe the Street Fighter, and maybe the Tekken, and maybe the Mortal Kombat. Pretty much those three. Um, and they are good for if you've already announced the game. They're amazing for sustaining that marketing build and hype, right, to the correct to the really designated audience, the hardcore audience. And you got to remember that the hardcore audience is less than 10 is oftentimes less than 10% of the population of any game. They might be like 90% of the vocal group on discussions, but as a player base and as a meter of success, they represent less than 10%, but they do represent a hardcore group that sustains, as well as a group that's just slightly less hardcore than them. Those are the ones that really give a game legs in the long term. But again, a lot of fighting games are still you buy them up front. And so you pay up front and then you don't really pay much more after that. And it's kind of, the DLC is what can probably sustain development, and interest and reasons for constant marketing. So, so I've always felt that Evo is an amazing event. It's a huge event. It's a huge event for fighting games. It's one of the best esports events, period. And I do think that Evo 2022 was a huge success. As far as Evo Japan goes, there were a lot of challenges they had to deal with. But for me, as a Virtua Fighter player, I had an amazing time there. And the VF, a lot of people said the VF players looked like they had the best time at Evo Japan. And I think we did because, like, I don't think we expect like too much. I think we just, we're just, we're happy to be there. And Japan is like the best place to play VF. And for me, it was a life goal, a life dream to go to Japan to play VF. But did I expect VF6 to be announced there? No. I said back then, I said that something like the Video Game Awards is where you should announce a Virtua Fighter. And also, I said Street Fighter 6 had not come out yet. Tekken 8 is looming and has been revealed, and so is in its current marketing cycle. And so I've always said that basically you should wait till after Tekken 8 launches or a little before it launches, kind of like what Mortal Kombat 1 did, because you don't want to create like a false rivalry between Tekken and Virtua Fighter because Tekken wins the popularity contest. Instead, what you want to do is after players have started forming opinions about Tekken 8, you want to, and already invested and planning to play that game, then you want to give room for people who come on board the Tekken train to be kind of interested in the VF train. And you want to have players who feel Tekken 8 might not be their Tekken, and yet somehow maybe VF will be their game. That might sound surprising, but that happened during Tekken 4 with a lot of Tekken 4 players playing Virtua Fighter 4 and Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution. And we had a lot of Soul Calibur 4 players who felt like maybe that game wasn't their vision of the competitive Soul Calibur that they wanted, but they still love Soul Calibur a lot, and they still do to this day. But it was opportunity, and I know that at least as far as hardcore players go, a lot of Soul Calibur players were playing Virtua Fighter 5 because it was like an alternative. And so you want to always have that room to people on board onto onto a game from another game. But if you kind of cross the marketing a little too early, you kind of set up a false rivalry. You kind of bring out um, the nerd rage, I guess, the fandom rage, right? And being like, oh, Tekken's gonna be better in VF. No, VF's gonna be better in Tekken, and it's not productive. You know, it's like to be honest, almost all the players buy both. you know, um, and uh, and so I've always felt that it's just kind of better to wait closer to when Tekken 8's releasing before promoting Virtua Fighter, especially if the next Virtua Fighter game is quite a ways off. And I think that's also why NetherRealm Studios didn't really start promoting Mortal Kombat 1 until like a month before Street Fighter 6 came out. Like we heard nothing about it until then. You know, I mean that is such a short like window. I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, when you know, even in August, I was like, wait, Mortal Kombat 1's coming out like in September. That was pretty surprising. So I do think there's reasonable chance that a Virtua Fighter gets announced at the Video Game Awards. I'm excited for that. Um, if it doesn't happen, I'll be okay, but I'll be kind of like, man, I wish. Um, what do I think is the best way to promote Virtua Fighter though at the Video Game Awards if they were doing that? I think if it turns out that they really want to complete this project of Virtua Fighter Esports, Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, and if even both rollback, netcode, and crossplay were in the cards, or completing the costume packs on just the PS4 version, either of those things would be an awesome while you're waiting for Virtua Fighter 6, this is what you know, like, enjoy the real, you know, the fuller experience of Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown. But then you have to tease Virtua Fighter 6. And now a tease can be anything. It could be a black screen and all you hear is maybe, like, let's assume Kiryu from Like a Dragon, the Yakuza games. Let's assume he's in the next Virtua Fighter because that's been a rumor for a while, despite statements that have been made. If that is the case, then a teaser could just be a black screen, and all the audience hears is first they hear Kira's voice. They're like, "Oh, another Like a Dragon project." Then they hear Akira Yuki saying one of his classic lines like "Junin Hayende yo," right? Like you're 10 years too young. Okay, that automatically tells everybody, look, the next Virtua Fighter game's coming, and it's gonna have some link to Like a Dragon. Um, that would be pretty hype. That sends the signals to the hardcore to start thinking about the next Virtua Fighter, and it does generate interest in the current Virtua Fighter and gets more people to play. That approach does work, and so that could be a more ideal approach. But life isn't always in the ideal, right? Sega could have already capped what they want to do with the current Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown esports as far as further development of it and promotion of it, but they've continued to promote it actually. Um, but um, but using that game as part of the marketing for the next Virtua Fighter game works because it gets all the content creators to start writing content again in the lead up to a new Virtua Fighter. So that's my thoughts on the Video Game Awards. And then I'm going to talk about VIRTUA 3tb Online. Okay, so I predicted 2 days before the announcement. Now, the nature of my prediction was kind of cynical, or kind of don't get your hopes too high up. Be prepared for this to be news that might not be for you, because what had happened was Sega did announce that they were going to be at Japan's amusement, like, arcade expo, or it's not even an expo anymore. It's like a fair. It's a celebration of arcade culture. And so they do talk about stuff, but arcades have changed a lot. 2023's arcades, it's a lot of claw machines, capsule machines, and knock down something to get a prize machines. It is very little bit actual video games nowadays, which that's also true in Japan. Now, there are arcades that have classic games, and then there's places like Taito Station that still maintains video games as the main way to play at the arcades, but these are in the minority. If you go to Namco's big arcade, it's the claw machines, and then maybe 1/3 or 1/4, 1/5 of a floor is dedicated to the rhythm games, and then you'll have like a Sega multicade machine, and then a few of the popular games. So Gundam will actually have a good amount of floor space. Gundam Versus, it's not the most popular game, but it has such a dedicated hardcore audience that it's kind of like, it's kind of like your Yu-Gi-Oh or your Pokemon trading card game, right? But it's like that for the arcade scene in Japan. It's more sustainable with a dedicated base that's going to be there. And so, but video games, fighting games, they're not really there. They're only in like the retrocade, the Japan's version of the retrocade, which looks like the arcades that we are used to, and Taito Station, right? And then a few other arcades, but it's not many. And in COVID, a lot of arcades closed down. I apologize that I've got landscaping sound is coming through, but anyhow. So, knowing that Sega was coming to that event, and then there was a leak of a trademark filing for VF3tb-Online.net. Okay, so people are wondering what's going on. Is VF3tb being launched online? And I think that alone is a weird prospect, to be honest, because it's hard to sustain a matchmaking or like a global matchmaking for that game. But many retro games do have online, but again, to put it in the name is a pretty big initiative. But I looked at it, and the only thing that really came to my mind was that it was gonna be for Japan's online arcades, because VF5 esports or Virtua Fighter esports in the arcade is on a multicade machine and does have online play. You play, because it's like maybe the 2 machines in the Namco arcade, and then maybe the 3 machines at the Taito, and the 1 machine at Arcade Mikado. You can play it online with those other machines from across the arcade. So Japan has an infrastructure where the businessmen are tired, but they want to play their Virtua Fighter, and they go to the arcades, and they want to have their rank system there. And they do play it that way. So I cynically posted online that imagine that this is going to be the most Japan only thing you can think of. Like, it's cool that they're still investing in Virtua Fighter, but imagine that this is going to be the most Japan only thing. Like, it doesn't apply to you global VF fans. It only applies to Japan, because almost always when it comes to VF and arcades, that's the case. It's almost always something that's only going to work in Japan, and we won't be able to play it elsewhere, right? It's going to be like what Monster Hunter Frontier was for the Monster Hunter community, where like you got to be in Japan to play it. Dragon Quest X, you got to be in Japan to play it. So I just cynically said, prepare for something like that. 2 days later, at the event, which we know Virtua Fighter pros were going to be there, we believe, to play Virtua Fighter, to do exhibition matches of Virtua Fighter esports. I thought they were going there to promote Virtua Fighter esports, except for this trademark leak, right? That event was all in on Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle Online. Again, sorry for the background noise. I'm going to speak louder because of it. But anyways, yeah, so like Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle Online was announced for arcades only, and this upset a lot of people, including Japanese VF fans, right? Because they want VF6 news, Now, here's the thing. In Japan, Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle, one of my favorite games of all time, does have a dedicated following and is doing pretty well there and has a tournament. Like, Virtua Fighter 4 Final Tune does not have a tournament scene, does not have an active, online, scene in the Japanese arcades. Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle does. It's more hardcore, but it's there. So, it's something sustainable, and it's something worth doing if the cost is right. So, after some disappointment and laughing that I predicted pretty maybe too accurately what was coming out. I did have to think about it a bit. I did read the translation of the 4Gamer interview with Aoki Seizi, and I did read a thought piece by one of the community members who has often been very good in their pieces, and I have to agree with a lot of points they made. So when we sit back and we think about what do we get, what do we want, the thing is, if we really want to play Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle, especially on PC, we can. And Dreamcasts are still available at not too bad of a price. We still can play it on that, but we can actually play it on Fightcade on PC with the best netcode, with better netcode than what Japan has, because Japan is using a delay-based netcode in their infrastructure. And if they came out in the US, if Virtua Fighter 3tb-Online came out in the US, we would have complained that it doesn't have rollback netcode. And that's people that would not even play it would complain that it doesn't have rollback netcode, as if they were going to originally play it. So to that, I have to say, if you really want Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle, we do have it. And if you want to play it online with rollback netcode, we do have it. But on top of that, if you want the version of the game, the Model 3 emulation of the game that Sega has made in the arcades now, we're going to have it. Because it's going to be in Like a Dragon, that's coming out, The Man with No Name, that comes out, I think I got the wrong one. I think it's Like a Dragon Gaiden. So, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. It's going to be in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which releases in January, about the same week that Tekken 8 releases. But you will have it in that game. You'll have this same version that's played in the Japanese arcades in Like a Dragon. And more people would buy Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth than however many people would have bought Virtua Fighter 3tb-Online or even a Virtua Fighter collection. I think at this point, we've seen that retro collections have trouble selling, and a lot of people who claim that they want those things and would buy those things would sooner emulate. I think we have to prove that we would actually buy it. But that said, and then when people say they won't buy it because it's in the Like a Dragon series goes on sale like a lot. They really go on sale a lot. They like, after the initial sales, they push those games on sale all the time. Like a Dragon Ishin went on sale 2 months after release, you know? So like, the Like a Dragon games go on sale a lot. They are huge sellers, but they also want to get the people that are holdovers, and so they put it on sale a lot because they nail those initial sales numbers. That series has become so big. So if you're saying you love Virtua Fighter and you want Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle, but you're saying you won't buy Infinite Wealth for it when it does go on sale, I have to question what you're saying. I have to really say, are you sure? Like, are you just expressing frustration to be frustrated? Do you really want to play it? Because if you really want to play it, it's available. And if you really want to play it, go buy Like a Dragon. And just think of it as buying Virtua Fighter 3 if you're not into the Like a Dragon as much. But Like a Dragon games are really good. So that's what I have to say about that. But there is the last point I got to make, which is about the arcade machine. So part of the complaint is this comes from the idea that Sega's investment in the Virtua Fighter 3tb-Online is like any other investment in making a standalone release or a console release. All the costs, all the process that goes into that. The 4Gamer interview made it clear that the Model 3 emulation that's in the games that are going to be on Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, that basically that was a passion project from one of their devs, one of the AM2 guys, or RGG Studio guys now. And so he made a Model 3 emulation that works really well, that's going to work on multi-platform, and it works in Like a Dragon and in the arcade as well. So basically, they just happen to have access to this. It didn't cost them much to make this. They didn't pour their heart and soul. Well, the developer poured their heart and soul to it, but Sega as a company didn't pour like a lot into this. And in that, with that perspective in mind, this VIRTUA 3tb Online that was marketed at an event that was very in the corners of Japan that would not be covered in the US media or in the European media even. It's basically a system update for their multicade machines. To put that into perspective, that's like if you go to your Red Robins and you know on the tables you've got a kiosk that you can pay, but you can also, your kids can play games on it. Imagine that thing getting a system update. And are you going to yell about they should have put that thing on my console? Maybe, maybe not. Or when you go to the bar and they have a kiosk similar, like a multicade machine, it's like a system update for that. That's what it is. But like I said, we are still getting VIRTUA 3 Team Battle. We might not get the online play and rankings of the Japanese arcade release, but we are getting that same game in Like a Dragon. And if we want it with netcode, we actually have it with better netcode. And while the Dreamcast is not exactly like the arcade, there are slight physics difference and stuff like that. It's still essentially the same-ish game, and it's still a very good game. And it is available to us to play on emulation if we really want. So if you want it, you should actually honor the hard work of people in the community that made it possible to play VIRTUA 3 Team Battle Online with rollback netcode, which is the thing people have said they wanted, right? In fact, I also gotta say, Virtua Fighter 4 Final Tune is available to play on Fightcade, and that is considered like, a lot of people would consider that the greatest of the Virtua Fighter games. I think the current game, Final Showdown, Ultimate Showdown, Esports, I think that game is the best of all the Virtua Fighter games, but Final Tune is definitely way up there for me, you know? Evolution and Final Tune both, right? And 3 Team Battle. Those 4 games are like my favorite Virtua Fighter games, and I love every Virtua Fighter game, but those ones are like stand head and shoulders above. I think Virtua Fighter 2 I have like some of the fondest memories of, and is a gorgeous game. And it is a really good playing game too, but I like the way that everything from 3 onward played. Though I would say Virtua Fighter 5 Vanilla is kind of the black sheep for me, and I would say that VF5R is like the weird one. It's really fun, but it's really weird. But Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown is, to me, a true accomplishment in fighting game design and a true accomplishment in Virtua Fighter design. So that's what I got to say about that. Okay, so that's my thoughts on 3 Team Battle Online. I'm okay with what Sega did because I don't think we are deprived even of any of it. I think in piecemeal, we've got it all, and we've got better. So that's ultimately what it is, and I think when we're complaining about a bigger thing, mostly that we want a Virtua Fighter 6, right? And I think we should be more sincere both to Sega and to ourselves about what it is that our frustrations actually are, or at least our hopes and dreams are too. And then we should be reasonable in my view, but that's up to each person. Some people are also like, if you don't make it known, you'll never get what you want, and that's true too. That's true too. Okay, so what I gotta say also is I'm having an amazing Virtua Fighter 5 year. This Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown year, this has been like the best year. It really has. In all of my 30 years of Virtua Fighter, and I've played Virtua Fighter for 30 years because I've played it since Virtua Fighter 1 the arcade, this was the best Virtua Fighter year for me. And that's a big thing because I've had so many wonderful years of Virtua Fighter. I've been traveling for the game for 23 years, about 24 years, and I've been teaching different generations the game, competing, playing with the best players around that I could have access to all around the world. And this year, though, I got to do the dream trip. I got to play in Japan. I got to play in New York with the best players in the country, with a lot of them. I got to meet one of the best players from EU in New York, and then I got to meet another one of the best players in EU in France when I went to Paris. And then and I made a side trip to go visit this player, to meet Kingo, and it was amazing. It was a wonderful, wonderful time, even though we only spent about maybe 7 hours together, 6 hours. But well worth the time for me, well worth the funds to go to make the train ride. And in New York, meeting Nero from Italy was absolutely wonderful because he is a wonderful human being. He's so much fun to he's crazy in his own way, but also full of youthful energy, but like also just a lot of fun um and a very special kind of Virtua Fighter player because he plays it almost like on an artistic level. It's pretty amazing. But at the same time, the best American players are still like so strong. Um, I got to play some of the best players from Korea. I got to play in Japan with the best players in the world, and I had good matches with them. I had so much fun. I got to go to the bars with them. I got to be at Evo with them. I got to take tons of photos with them, and um, and then I got to play at Arcade Mikado, you know. And then in my own region, I've been able to play. Um, we have had VF activity in my region like a lot, and now that offline is happening again, this week was the first week where we have 3 offline sessions in a week, and that's gonna be normal for us in Portland, Oregon. Normally for the past 6 months, 2 Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown online offline meetups a week, and now 3, and it's amazing. And we have been teaching players from Street Fighter 6, from Guilty Gear Strive, from Guilty Gear Plus R, from Guilty Gear Xrd. We've been teaching players from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. We've been teaching players from Project Justice. We've been teaching players from Tekken, from Soul Calibur. The list goes on and on. Right now, it does take a lot of work, and it does take a lot of give before you can take. In Thai, we say give before you receive. And this is very true when it comes to to fighting games actually, and it can be a test of patience. But I found that if your enthusiasm is good and somehow if people can see the love of the game but also that you appreciate them too, I do believe that ultimately they will at some point give you a chance. Like you will be creating uh you will give creating chances for opportunity to knock. And then you just got to be ready for when it does knock, but you can't always rush it. Sometimes you can't you got to build towards you have to build towards that opportunity. So in Portland, we've got 3 offline sessions a week now for Virtua Fighter. It's so wonderful. We have, and I'm still playing online, and we're gonna have a side tournament at Bonus Round, which is a big event for the Tekken and the Soul Calibur crowd, but it's also drawing a lot of people for Uni, Under Night in Birth, and for Guilty Gear. We've been teaching Under Night in Birth players, and vice versa. Actually, some of the VF players are playing Under Night in Birth now too. So there's a lot of cross pollination there because Under Night in Birth is a really really good series. Like it doesn't it goes a different route than Virtua Fighter, but at the end it comes to a point where these games have lots and lots of mixing up, lots and lots of mind games, tons of them, and we love that. So, and it has its own version of a rapid pace. Um, and then of course online, Akai has been doing the North American Akai Open VF leagues for a year and a half, and I've been so we always count up who gets the number first place finishes in each league battle, and for most of the seasons I've won most of the seasons. I think it's about either 3 or 4 of the seasons out of like either 6 or 7 seasons. But Jimmy Claymore won last season. I think Akai won another season, and and maybe Himajan won the first season. Um, but I won the rest, and now it's really competitive, especially since Akai has added 3 additional days of leagues per week for this season, so 4 days a week. And I've been gone a lot this season because I had a lot of trips. Uh, and yet, still, right now, at the moment, I'm tied for first place with Bannock, who is a player I'm cheering for. But I definitely want to win first place. But there's a lot of people in contention for first place. At the end of this month, there's going to be quite a few. Setsuna, myself, Akai could do it. Um, I think Crazy Drunk Bannock is like the favorite. Jimmy Claymore, if he plays 2 weeks, would be a favorite. Paul 68 KDMD would be a favorite if he played more leagues, but he usually only plays like one or two and then is out. Um, but he's climbing. He's getting closer. Um, it's awesome, and I love it. It's been a blast. It makes the online even more fun. We do a podcast while we do the Sunday ones, and then of course I stream other nights too. But I wish I was streaming more. The only underwhelming thing is I wish I streamed a lot more this year. But I did stream a lot still. I just wish I streamed more. Um, and then now, a lot of people felt like EU VF was kind of dead, but Akai has put in extra hours to put on 4 leagues a week for the EU region, and it has really reinvigorated. It's gotten their whole scene to play much more frequently and talk VF. It's awesome. So right now, this is an amazing month for Virtua Fighter, and this is also officially the 30th anniversary of Virtua Fighter. So happy anniversary, Virtua Fighter. Thank you so much. I hope that the Video Game Awards will be Virtua Fighter news. But if it's not, I'm still having the time of my life with Virtua Fighter. But please tease something. Regardless, though, there will be some really good Sega news. And I am looking forward to it because I am a Sega fan. But Virtua Fighter 2 is what made me a Sega fan. So it got me to get a Sega Saturn. And the Sega Saturn is probably my fondest console. It's the console that this is the biggest in my heart, especially with Treasure making great games on it. But a lot of different developers were trying to do creative things with it. Some things they did great, some things not as great. But it was just this energizing time to be a gamer, and the future seemed limitless, right? And there every few eras you have that, and like the most creative energy and development. And the Sega Saturn for me was one of those, even if it was on a very difficult to work on hardware. Anyways, you guys have a good time watching the Video Game Awards tonight. I'm going to try to watch it when I can, but I've got to do some stuff with family too, so it's going to be one of those things where I'm bouncing around trying to catch up on what's going on. But regardless of what happens tonight, and I hope it's Virtua Fighter news, regardless of what happens, keep enjoying Virtua Fighter. It's amazing. And let's have fun in the fighting game community together. And also, I'll give you one secret for why the FGC is really doing really well in Portland right now. It's because this has been the most inclusive the fighting game community has been. Is it perfectly inclusive? Not exactly yet, but it's more inclusive than it's ever been. And people of all different types are playing. And we try to make sure that they consistently do that. And there's a lot of groups that have found a home in the fighting game community in the newer generation. And as long as you accept them and embrace them and engage with other people of other games, not just your game, but you talk about their game with a similar passion, or you give them room to speak about their game with the passion, you're going to feel a better sense of the community. And you got to be open if you want them to be open to you. And it works. And it creates opportunity. It's not the fastest process, but it works. And I think every week in Portland we keep proving that. So I wish for that for everyone else too. And right now, this weekend, watch Global Showdown. The Japanese players are in Liverpool in the United Kingdom right now. And they're going to be playing with a lot of strong European players and maybe some American players. But this event has been in the making for about 3 years, and it's been tough. But it's finally here. And at the very least, the Japanese players are going to get an amazing vacation out of it, and the Europeans are going to get an amazing experience playing with the Japanese like I did. And I wish I was there. I was planning to be at Global Showdown, but this year I had a lot of trips planned with family. There's no room in my budget to go, but I'm glad it's happening. So let's support them, right? Cheers. Have an awesome Virtua Fighter week. Happy anniversary, Virtua Fighter. Thank you.